to talk with you all. As Mark said, I serve as the Interim Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. My name's Miriam, Roccia. I've been at the university about 5 years, but really my heart for service started for me in high school and college when I had the opportunity to serve in a service sorority. And that's carried with me in the work that I do with students every day. In this role, I've had the chance to learn more about our Cougar Cupboard on campus, but more importantly about the basic student needs of our students and what students are experiencing. For a lot of us who maybe experience college, we think about that it's like part of the rite of passage to only have ramen for dinner, right? That you know, that's what you see on TV, that's what we think about. The reality is for us, and for kind of the trends in higher education, that there's a significant barrier to access to food, access to stable housing, access to reliable transportation, access to childcare needs, all of those things, which in turn impacts, obviously, a student's ability to be successful. Last year, we participated in a study out of Temple University, a student basic needs survey. This data is our specific data. We had 2,400 students participate. So if there's a question ever, usually I'm talking to faculty, and if we have faculty in the room, I appreciate and love you, and if I only have 200 people take a survey, they often question the validity of the results. 2,400 students responding to this from last spring is significant. 52% of our students said that they had experienced some sort of basic needs insecurity in the last 6 months. 37% had experienced food insecurity, 37% housing insecurity, and actually 10% had experienced homelessness in the last 12 months. We have had a food pantry on campus for a little over 5 years. How many of you knew that? Did you know we had a student? How many of you have been great donors or have helped in some way there? Anybody? Thank you. And I know the Rotary here has been a great partner for us in terms of providing citrus for our students who are staying over break and things like that. And so we'll talk about some advancements we're looking to make that'll even help us provide additional service to students. So this is some information from that Hope Center survey. These aren't quotes from our students necessarily, but I do want Lilia to sort of scroll through for you and see what college students today are up against, right? Again, I was an undergrad more than 25 years ago. I've only ever worked in higher education. When I started my career, higher education was about educating students, and it was somebody else's job to worry about all the rest, right? The reality now is for students to succeed in higher education, just like our K through 12 partners, we have to make sure that they have reliable access to food, reliable access to childcare, all of those things I spoke about before, right? This is specific data to SIUE. I have 30 handouts here if anyone wants to take one with them. But these are our results from our students, right? So 46% said that they couldn't afford a balanced meal. So when we think about food insecurity, I think sometimes we're thinking about, but you had access to ramen, right? But again, is ramen really the way we want our students to eat? Is that helping them be focused for success in the classroom? Absolutely not. 38% worried about running out of food. Our housing insecurity, 37%, as I had said before, were housing insecure. One of the things you won't necessarily be able to see here is really the impact of our growth in our international student population as well, and the impact that has had on basic student needs insecurity for us on campus. This survey didn't really provide me the opportunity to disaggregate by international students. I'm hopeful that when I get that raw data, I'll be able to see a little bit deeper. But I will tell you that our international students, I think, truly are experiencing some of the highest level of insecurity that we're seeing. So I wanted to show you where we are today in terms of our efforts around basic needs insecurity versus where we had been previously. So FY19, if you see the pantry column, this tells you the total users we had that entire year, right? Already, just in the pantry this year, in the first 4 months, we've exceeded every other year. Already. And I'll explain why. But you'll also see summer, August, September, October, November, lots of other initiatives we've started to undertake, right? So while food was our primary focus when we began this effort, we also know that if you can't have access to food, you might not have access to a bar of soap. You might not have access to toilet paper. You might not have access to clothing. Thanksgiving boxes, we've never done that before. We had 165 register and 143 participate. We've done holiday boxes at wintertime, never done Thanksgiving. So the focus on hygiene, the focus on basics in a bag. The other thing we've done consciously, which has contributed to this, we used to require you to have an appointment in advance. Our system for checking out, kind of archaic to be frank, so it would take you 10 or 15 minutes to check out, so I could only put 3 or 4 people through in an hour. We've chosen to eliminate appointments. We've chosen to change our checkout system, which is wonderful, but you can see at the right, we're close to 1,200 users across all of these efforts in the first 4 months. Some things that don't show up here that I think are important to think about. Again, we've talked about barriers to reliable childcare, which obviously impacts your ability to go study with your group, to work on your group project, to go to class. We are fortunate to have a grant that we've been able to expand. It used to only apply to student parents who had kiddos in our early childhood center. This round, which we have for 4 years, we're in our 2nd year, we've actually expanded into licensed childcare facilities, as well as through 5th grade to be able to cover Kids Zone or comparable type programs in the community. We have about 38 student parents who are participating in that, and really, it will cover a good portion of their overall costs for childcare, which is wonderful. You wanna go ahead? Why this matters, right? Why this matters to us. We have a goal on campus to achieve a 90% retention rate with our students. We've undertaken some efforts, both symbolically around the number 283, but also for a real purpose, right? 283 is the number of students we would have needed to retain to hit that 90% mark from our fiscal year 21 class of students who came in, right? 283 seems manageable when you think about it in that way. I think sometimes we get overwhelmed by 90% seems very, very lofty, but if we boil it down to providing access to basic needs that might have been a barrier to somebody staying enrolled, and that becomes 1 student or 3 students or 10 students, that starts to make a real difference. So I wanted to share a little bit about some ways we've expanded in the last 12 months. We have some state legislation here in Illinois, which I'm proud to be in Illinois and have a state that cares to kind of put some of these efforts in place. We have a benefits navigator on campus who will work with students in filling out state benefit forms that can often be pretty daunting and pretty difficult to understand. We also have what's called a house liaison, which is really focused on both students experiencing homelessness and hunger, as well as students who are coming through the youth in care or foster care system and moving into college. We also have a Mental Health Early Action on Campus Act that requires us to provide a specific caseload of counselor to student, provide training, provide communication. This is pretty new for us this year, but we were able to expand to essentially offer every student up to 9 counseling appointments a year, which is significant. We're able to do that through a partnership with a software, a virtual telehealth company. I think sometimes I want to note here, access to mental health, access to pharmacies, access to healthcare. As somebody who moved to this side of the river from the other side of the river, it's taken me 5 years to find a primary care provider. So imagine if you're a student who's coming from out of this area to try to establish care, to make sure that your insurance works. Again, if you're an international student, like we have health service on campus, but we're doing pretty acute care, right? So if you need to be referred out, it can be a significant barrier, both financially, but also just from an access standpoint. I talked a little bit about our Child Care Access Means Parents in School grant. Most excitingly, Lilia, if you will stand up and be recognized. Lilia is our new Student Care and Advocacy Coordinator. This is a long overdue position for us. And so, honestly, she has jumped right into some of these expansions we've been doing with Cougar Covered, which is wonderful, but also has a background from our early childhood center, so she also has a responsibility with our student parents who receive that grant. And her purpose really is to provide some of those wraparound services for students to make sure that they can continue to succeed in school. So thank you, we're so glad you were here. And then we've also set up a student care and advocacy network. So our Dean of Students office is sort of the hub at this point of our student care efforts. But we live in the one administrative building, right? And so we don't have the eyes to see what's happening in all of these other spaces. And so we've partnered with our academic deans, our colleges, and our schools to kind of have a point person and an expert who will know what resources are available and help connect our faculty and staff to be knowledgeable about the resources so that they can in turn help students. Thanks. I'm gonna go forward. Yep, perfect. I talked a little bit about the ways we've expanded. So we did this new clothing pop-up. We also, if you didn't know, have a professional attire closet on campus. And so that has been a wonderful resource for our students who may have barriers to accessing the clothing they need to participate in career fairs, internships, job searches, things like that. Sometimes though, they get things that don't meet that professional attire kind of threshold. And in the past, we didn't really know what to do with it. And so we've been able, through the student care side now, to take those items that don't meet that threshold and find a way to provide them to students who need access to clothing. Hygiene bags were new this year as well. So lots of different initiatives that we've just really tried to expand our impact for students. 3 brand new additions as of Monday this week are our mini Cougar cupboards. So very similar to a little free pantry you might see out in the community or a little free library, sort of a take what you need, leave what you can't. The Cougar cupboard is probably open 20 hours a week, right? 5 days a week right now, 20 hours a week. It's not a 24/7 accessible space. This gives us a chance for a student who's running to class and maybe didn't have time to get to the cupboard, but realizes I'm not in a space to be successful and focus on this class period today, that they can stop by, grab something that will help sustain them through. We've also been really intentional. So these are located in the Morris University Center, the Lovejoy Library, and our Student Fitness Center. The Fitness Center is a little bit more loaded with hygiene products, right? We have showers there that students would have access to, so we want to make sure that there's deodorant, that there's shampoo, that there's things like that. But they have been up 5 days, and already we have ordered 3 more for campus, just because really by the second day, we already started getting, these are close to wiped out. You know, there's a need, so how do we expand that? Also, really excited to share that when I had the opportunity to talk with Mark, it was to talk a little bit about our need to expand from our current location. So we will be relocating, thanks to our partnership with the SIUE Foundation. We'll be relocating our Cougar Cupboard, which will still be in the University Center, but just to a different location that'll basically double our size. And what that'll let us do is get a commercial grade refrigerator. So right now we have no ability to really provide anything that needs, anything past shelf stable, right? We had the chance this year to partner with the Goshen Market and the foundation to get sort of leftover produce after the Goshen Market. So we started doing these pop-ups on Tuesday morning. Well, if we had stuff left, it was really hard to even sustain that till the next time the Cougar Cupboard was open, right? Because apples will last longer when they're in the fridge. Things will just last longer. So we're excited to see where that goes. We think we'll probably be able to kind of start test running that and have that relocation finished, hopefully for summer is our goal, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, other than that, do you want to, I mean, really, like I said, we're excited. I think the relocation also gives us the chance to bring in those hygiene products, to bring in school supplies. We don't think about that sometimes, right? If you can't afford food, can you afford the notebook to start class? Can you afford the backpack you need? Those have not been things. The focus was so heavily on food, which is critical, but this will give us an opportunity to continue to expand in other ways. So I think other than that, like I said, you know, we're hopeful to make some strides in terms of transportation access as well. I had an international student I was talking with who told me that he basically takes his hamper on the bus to Walmart because of how many bags he has to get of food, and then he's taking the bus back and managing all of those items. You just see our international students specifically kind of walk on with an empty hamper because they found that that's easier, right? So while we may take for granted that trip to wherever we want to go to do things and the ability to have a shopping cart, put the things in your trunk, those other kind of barriers, even when you have reliable transportation, there are other barriers attached to that. And so we're just always kind of on the look for different ways that we can help support students. So I'm happy to take any questions, and I have time.
You are.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
So, are there I think there's restaurants on your campus, like a Chick-fil-A.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so is there any kind of program with like the leftover food, instead of being thrown away at the end of the day, so to, you can just come by at the end of the day, grab what you put out? And
Yeah,
also,
go ahead.
if they have, access to the bus, isn't the Glen Ed pantry, I mean, wouldn't that be?
Yeah,
They
so
might just have more resources than the smaller one on campus, is that?
yes. So two things. So we self-operate our dining, so it's actually us. So any chance we have, when we have sort of food, shelf-stable items, like we work with dining to be like, what can come over to the cupboard? We just have to find a delicate balance between the food safety end of what's left at the end of the night and whether, frankly, students are ready at 9 o'clock in the evening when that facility closes to come back and get the extra food. That hasn't been something we've looked at because of that food risk component. In terms of local partners, we have a very good relationship with Glen Ed Pantry. I would tell you that, and I don't believe I'm speaking out of turn here, they feel that the increase we've seen has impacted their ability to serve others in the community. And so they've sort of backed off a little bit and asked for our students to come to our space first. Other questions over here? Yeah, sorry.
So, I mean, it's great, I mean, the services obviously are needed. My question would be, do you have any classes or programs teaching people how to shop for food or what good choices are? Because this dovetails kind of in a situation I dealt with Monday at my bank. I overheard a conversation. It was an SIUE student, and after hearing she was they were having trouble with overdrafts, and obviously there's fees on those, so different things. And after listening to her talk, you could just tell that she was really asking for help more than anything. So brought her into an office, we talked. So she's a first generation college student, great, from a central town, central Illinois. And so we looked at it, her church actually collects money, because she's like one of the congregation that's like hopeful for like the rest of the congregation. She's at SIUE. They actually collect money for her and on a monthly basis. So she gets some money in, about $400 from the church on top of other things she gets. But when we looked at her account, 17 Uber Eats, 17 Uber Eats, all kinds of little things with stuff, and all these overdraft fees add up. She just runs out of money. But she's like, well, everything's so, and then after talking to her, and this is, I mean, it's eye-opening to me, because I have to say, everybody here is very lucky. It's eye-opening to me. Here was a 19-year-old person who really just needed some life skills. That just didn't know how to, it's just, you know, you pick your phone up, technology is great, but it's also a detriment, I think, to a lot of people. So she's just ordering food, being delivered, paying like crazy. So, because she was a female, and she was open to help. You could tell, I think she just was needing it. So myself and a female employee of mine, because I didn't want to go with, you know, someplace. So she came in Wednesday, so just yesterday, because she came in money and she had some money. So we went down to, I mean, it's not high class, but deals. It used to be the dollar store, now it's $1.25 store, I guess. Inflation. But we were able to, for $20, she was able to get 3 pizzas. They're not huge pizzas, but they're 3 pizzas, some microwave frozen vegetables, canned goods, all kinds of microwave food for $20. She's like, this will feed me for. This is almost too much for me this week.
Yeah.
But before that, she's just gonna continue. So is there any kind of classes you're offering, and instead of these people just constantly, you know, like obviously teaching the fish type of thing, but it was eye-opening to her, because she says she has transportation by bus and by different services to get to those. She just didn't even know those kind of things, those resources even existed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I think that's something we strive for regularly, right? But as we're onboarding students, there's a million things that are being thrown at them. So even their ability sometimes to remember that we have a food pantry on campus is lost. I mean, if you look at our data, a good portion of our campus doesn't actually even know, a good portion of the students who responded don't even know we have a food pantry. Doesn't matter how many times we get ourselves out in the middle of campus, doesn't matter how many times we do a new thing, send an email, do social media, we just miss it. To your question, I think we are really working on, I'll call it financial literacy, and that's not quite exactly what you're talking about, but it's close, right? It's an alignment for sure. We are absolutely looking at some ways to help develop greater financial literacy for our students. But I think to your point, right, like if I only have transportation, if I don't have my own vehicle and I need food, I'm gonna go to Uber Eats as my access to food because they'll bring it to me. And I won't think about kind of the longer term impact of that.
She had $70 in fees for just delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I would share with you all as folks who interact with SIUE students in the community is that you're aware that there are services that you redirect those folks or can redirect those folks back to campus as well for support. I also appreciate though, thank you for taking her to deals, or thank you for talking with her about that, because your perspective from being a business person in the community is different than mine or Lilia's with a student, right? It is. Like, your ability to say this is how it is, or this is my experience, let me help you, is important.
If you do have the ability to jump off Dan here a little bit, if you do have the ability to talk to these people, there's such a thing out there called Instacart. For like $10 a month, they can shop at Aldi for you and deliver it right to your door. Aldi's is a great place to buy food that's not very expensive. So, I mean, you can get better meals. You might want to tell her about that, Dan, even just for $10 a month, basically, you have fresh food, you have everything, and it's $30 minimum for Uber Eats, regardless of where you go.
And again, we have food accessible on campus. You have to choose, like, not everybody has a meal plan. Let me be like very clear about that, right? If we have 12,000 students on campus, 1,800 have a meal plan. They have access to food. They could be spending that same money with us.
Sure.
That's not what I'm not advocating for that. I'm advocating for how do we create access and remove the barriers in that way.
That was a question from Nate. Last question.
Are there opportunities for, whether it be churches or Rotary clubs, things like that, to partner with your organization, and if so, what would that be?
Yeah, Lily, do you want to actually jump in on that question?
Yes, we can do a food drive for that month. If you want to pick up that you would like to do a food drive, we can talk about that, and you can do a food drive. There are certain items that we might need that we might say, let's do a food drive for canned fruit, or we might need pasta sauce. So we can talk about that. Yeah, that would definitely.
Or toiletries. I mean,
Yeah,
Yes.
toiletries.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the things
We
that,
have plenty of toilet paper.
yeah, we just got a huge donation of toilet paper, so preferably not toilet paper.
That's those goals.
There's also opportunities to sponsor a shelf. Like, we have a price that says, I'm gonna sponsor the canned fruit shelf for the month, and it's this much. And that allows us to go out and fill that shelf. So there's quite a few innovative ways, even if you're just on campus and you want to put something in the mini pantry, like whether it's, I have a colleague on campus who every Friday emails me, what do you need this week? And when he does his shopping for that week, he adds items to it and brings them to my office and we take it over. So we're really appreciative. I know I'm getting the hook here from we really appreciate the opportunity to just kind of share with you what I think is probably unseen for a lot of us, an unseen kind of reality of college life right now. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is on behalf of the home nursery and the associate family.
Perfect, thank you.
Absolutely. 50-50. Last four digits, 5137. 5137.
Seriously get it? Oh my goodness.
Hello, Dave.
Okay, well, you gotta sit with me. You did, and you were sitting.
Deuce.
Deuce.
See, Brian, here you go. He's got your $2.
I want my $2.
Okay, so next meeting, it will be back at Leclerc Room. Program is Anne. Our invocation is Mark. Greeters are Jero and Karen. And 50-50 will be Kada. So you're gonna bring back the $2, right? Yeah. Before we do the forward test, we got a note from what group is this? The people that put on the Nutcracker at the Wilding. They have 2 tickets to offer to the Rotary Club. Yes. So Sunday there's a Nutcracker, and whoever wants to take the tickets, if you have little kids, please see me. Rich? No? Okay. Okay, so please come and take the tickets from me. Would you rise and say the forward test with me? Of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and benefit? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?